When Constantine came to power, although he was a worshiper of the god Apollo, he claimed that he was a Christian. Coins that were made after that showed sun symbols all around him. In this painting in the Vatican, it shows Constantine giving the statue symbolizing the political power of the kingdom to the Bishop of Rome at that time. Whether or not this really happened is irrelevant, for we know that somehow the Bishop of Rome became the ruler of the entire Christian world. It's assumed that the Roman Catholic Church became the political authority over Rome. In this painting in the Vatican, we see the cross of Calvary taking the place of the statue of the sun god in a pagan temple. What really happened during those years? Well, in order to attach to Christianity great attraction in the eyes of the nobility, the priests adopted outer garments and adornments which were used in pagan cults. From the Life of Constantine by Eusebius, cited in Altai Nimalaya, page 94. So the Christians adopted, number one, priesthood, which was not a concept in Christianity, but pagan, and adopted the garments of these priests. What we see the priests wearing today in the Christian church are in fact pagan outfits. The church did everything it could to stamp out such pagan rites, but had to capitulate and allow the rites to continue with only the name of the local deity changed to some Christian saint's name. Religious Tradition and Myth by Dr. Edwin Goodenour, professor of religion at Harvard University, page 56 and 57. So the church adopted the pagan gods and gave them Christian names. Many of the gods we see, or the statues that we see in the Christian churches today, were originally gods that the pagans bowed down and offered sacrifice to. Confiding then in the power of Christianity to resist the infection of evil and to transmute the instrument and appendages of demon worship to an evangelical use, the rulers of the church from early times were prepared, should occasion arise, to adopt or imitate or sanction the existing rites and customs of the populace. Development of Christian Doctrine by Cardinal Newman, page 372. And in the next page he gives an entire list of paganism that had come into the Christian church. So the rites of Christianity today are pagan in origin by the church's own admission. From the foregoing, which treats merely of the more important solar festivals, it is clear that these products of paganism are as much in force at present as they ever were, and that the Christianity countenances, and in many cases has actually adopted and practiced pagan rites whose heathen significance is merely lost sight of because attention is not called to the source whence these rites have sprung. So heavy was this infiltration that Sir Samuel Dill exclaims Christianity is only a sect of Mithraism. Roman Society from Nero to Marcus Aurelius, page 7. We know that Mithraism was the state religion of Rome at the time that the Christian church was established there. Evidently, tenets of Mithraism, such as Sunday worship and eating the wafer in the Mass, were adopted into Christianity at that time. Mithra worship was the worship of astrology and the worship of the mystical sun god and the god of nature. In short, sun worship, symbolically speaking, lies at the very heart of the great festivals which the Christian church celebrates today. And these relics of heathen religion have, through the medium of their sacred rites, curiously enough, blended with practices and beliefs utterly antagonistic to the spirit which prompted them. Sun Lure of All Ages by Alcott, page 248. Scholars of the world, historians, and church leaders themselves admit that Roman Christianity is in fact pagan idolatry in a Christian guise. The symbols of the pagan world have been adopted into the Christian church and claimed sanctified by the union. In the book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, we read, "Yet the cross itself is the oldest of the phallic emblems, and the lodge-shaped windows of the cathedrals are proof that the Ionic symbols have survived the destruction of the pagan mysteries. The very structure of the church itself is permeated with sexual symbolism or phallicism. Remove from the Christian church all emblems of priapic or sexual origin, and nothing is left." When we look into the Christian churches today and see those windows, the layout of the floors and the arches and the domes, we're looking at symbols of raw pagan sexual worship. the spires of the churches, the courtyards, all reflect the early concepts of sexual worship. When the zealots of the primitive Christian church sought to paganize Christianity, the pagan initiates retorted with a powerful effort to paganize Christianity. The Christians failed, but the pagans succeeded. With the decline of paganism, the initiated pagan hierophants transferred their base of operations to the new vehicle of primitive Christianity, adopting the symbols of the new cult to conceal those eternal verities which are ever the priceless possession of the wise. So, Christianity became the actual home of the pagan leaders in that age. Pagan men, now claiming to be Christian, were leading out. The world cloaked with a form of righteousness walked into the Christian church. Now the work of corruption rapidly progressed. Paganism, while appearing to be vanquished, became the conqueror. Her spirit controlled the church. Her doctrines, ceremonies, superstitions were incorporated into the faith and worship of the professed followers of Christ. From the Christian history book, The Great Controversy, page 50. Paul had warned about the dangers of Gentile worship. In 1 Corinthians 10:20, he told the Christian church, "But I say that the things which a Gentile sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to God. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and the table of devils." Christianity had become devil worship from beginning to end. As we look at the sacrifices and worships of the pagan world around them, knowing that this worship was ascending up before Satan and his evil angels, we're realizing that the Christian church, in adopting these same forms, were in fact sending their worship up before the same powers. In a comparison between sun worship and Christianity, we find an exact parallel today. The nativity of the sun, the birth of Tammuz, December 25th, is now called Christmas. The Midsummer Festival, that's held June 24th, is now called the Nativity of St. John. And the Assumption of Semiramis, who became the mother goddess in paganism, is now called the Assumption of Mary, who became the mother of God. The mother goddess was worshipped and titled the Queen of Heaven. And that's the title that the Virgin Mary is given today. Cakes were decorated and dedicated to the goddess with a T crossed on it. Those are called the hot cross buns in the church today. The 40 days of fasting and lamentation for Tammuz are now called Lent in the Christian church. The festivals of Easter are still called Easter, and the resurrection of Tammuz at Easter and the procession of graven images during Holy Week is now the procession of the graven images of Jesus, Mary, and Peter, and of the saints. The veneration of graven images of Ishtar, Tammuz, and lesser gods of the heavens in the temples and in the courtyards is now the veneration of graven images of Jesus, Mary, and the saints. The belief in the immortality of the soul and the burning place of torment went on thousands of years in pagan idolatry. The doctrine of purgatory was borrowed from the concept of purgation of the Greek philosophy. The belief of the dead visiting the living, the feast, this feast held in November, called All Souls Day, is now the festivals of All Souls Day in Christianity. We know it as Halloween. The concept of burning incense before the altars was pagan. Chants, repetitious prayers, and beads are now called the rosary in the church. The symbol of the cross was a symbol of the sun and a symbol of Satan. And now it's become the object of worship in the Christian church. Amulets, idols were worn to scare away evil spirits in paganism.